What is going on, Diablo 2 fans? Dubrunski here. In today's video, I want to do a brief overview of the new Warcry Barbarian. So I want to use the word new very loosely because in terms of the skill Warcry, it's largely the same to LOD. It still receives the same 6% damage per level synergy from Howl, Taunt, and Battlecry. The only difference between LOD and PTR is they buffed the percent damage scaling by 30%. That's what they said in the PTR notes. But I think that Warcry is such a confused skill because when you completely max it out, you'll see at like level 45, the damage output is still very low. Now it does provide great crowd control support, but the radius is very tiny on it. So one of the ideas that I suggested was maybe adding an increasing scaling radius as you invest more skill points, because the only scenario where I found it a very useful skill to use is when you're kind of waiting for Bale to cast a wave. You kind of sit there spamming it, they land in it, hopefully they land in the ring because it's very tiny, then they're stunned and you whirlwind around. I don't actually find it a very non-clunky skill. That's probably bad wording. I find it a very clunky skill to use in regular standard like PVM, Whirlwind, or Frenzy use. That's just my opinion. I think a scaling radius per level would make the skill more useful in terms of utility. It doesn't have to be like Warcry. That would maybe be a little bit too crazy, but maybe 20 yard points radius is maybe something like this. I don't know, it's a suggestion that I have for the skill, but I do want to show off two variants of this build. And the first is going to be a MF focused Pit Singer variant. So this build setup is basically similar to the Pitzerker, except instead of using Howl and the Berserk and item find, you are using Howl and then Warcry, largely relying on your mercenary to get a kill, and then you use item find. Over long periods of gameplay, I personally find the Pit Singer a little bit easier to play compared to the Pitzerker. Again, that's just me. Although listening to the Warcry spam is annoying, and in general, I don't really like this build because the loot clutter, even on players 1 without loot filter, is pretty bad. But I'll quickly go over the attributes, the skill tree, and then I'll do the gear in a pit run, and then I'm going to do a Chaos Sanctuary run with a max damage setup. So for the attributes, I went with kind of like a hybrid setup, so not a max vitality setup. And that is because this is a super mana intensive build. It is 42 mana per Warcry cost at level 33, and it's even worse at higher skill levels, but you can kind of see just spamming that, it's going to be a very brutal character in terms of mana output. So I wanted to have 300 points into energy, and then enough strength to equip my gear, and then everything else in vitality. So when I buff up with Battle Lords and Battle Command, 1800 mana and 3200 life. So that's kind of what I would personally shoot for a Warcry setup. Again, let me know in the comment section below if you guys agree or disagree, but it is a super mana intensive setup. Now in terms of the skill tree, combat's very easy. I invested nothing. The combat mastery, 100 point into increased stamina, increased speed, iron skin, and natural resistance. And then for the Warcry skill tree, I put 20 hard points into Warcry, and then 20 into Howl, Taunt, and Battlecry. And then I put 20 into Battle Orders, and I have 100 point into Find Potion and Find Item. Now, if you want to make a top tier MF focused variant, you would want to have more points into Find Item, and then you'd put less in the damage synergies because the overall damage of Warcry isn't that great. But I'm not trying to make an optimal MF setup. I just want to show you guys what it's like in the pits, and then we'll switch to a max damage setup for Chaos Sanctuary. Now, for the gear, I have a bare inventory, but just imagine if you were magic finding, you would have all 7 MF small charms. And I have a Annie torch, or Annie and a Barb torch. Then I have dual whiz spikes on the main hand. The amount of mana and mana regen you get from whiz spikes, I feel like you should always use them with this build. There are hybrid setups using like 1 Hodo, 1 whiz spike, but because the damage isn't that great, I'd rather just have extra mana, so I went with dual whiz spike. Then I have Ariat's Face. This has a Chamron in it. It's just here edited from a moderator. You'd maybe want an Istrun or something, or an Isted Shaco if you wanted to magic find. And then I have a 2/8 FCR MF Caster Amulet, Enigma, 2 SOJs, Arachid's Mesh, Mage Fist, IK Boots. You could use War Travelers if you want more magic find. And the offhand, I have dual Hodos for a higher Battle Command and Battle Orders buff up. And the Mercenary is a Might or a Merc, using Chains of Honor, a Faceted Shaco, so ideally this would be an Isted Shaco. Again, not perfect gear. And then Insight. So The idea is to stack as much MF on the Merc as you can. So if Isted Shaco would be 75, plus 25 MF on Chains of Honor, that's 100, plus 23, that's 123 Magic Find. And then if I can get like 700 on my Barbarian, when my Merc gets the kill, that MF is stacked on top of mine. So it's a good MF variant build. Again, it's not my favorite, but I'll kind of show off a quick example run here. Essentially, like the Pit Zerker, we'll Telestomp, we'll Howl, and then we'll Warcry, Mercenary will get a kill, and then we'll use Item Find on a corpse. Just check out this loot clutter in Players 1. Again, I would like to advocate for a loot filter, but that's not the purpose of this video. But I'll do a little bit more, so just... Players 1, even Merc even got that kill pretty quickly, but it's just Teleport, Howl, Warcry. And then Item Find. Again, I'm not very good at this build. I haven't practiced it for the sake of this video. I'm not a big Barb fan. People have called me out in the comments before about that. But you get the idea. It's similar to the Pit Zerker. Howl, Warcry, and then Item Find. But that's not really what I wanted to showcase because it doesn't change too much from an LOD hit singer. What I do kind of want to show off is a max damage focused variant and then run the Chaos Sanctuary. So what I'm going to change is I'm going to put Fortitude on the Mercenary and G-Face. Mercenary won't actually have won't have Life Leech, but we have a lot of crowd control
put that to good use
with Warcry, so I don't think it's that big a deal. You could switch to something like a Toll, but the mana consumption is ridiculous on this build, so I feel like it's best to just keep with Insight. And then I'm going to put a full inventory of Warcry Skillers. And I'm going to sacrifice one of the Whiz Spikes for Beast. So I still want the mana. You could go Beast and Hodo. It's an option. Put Beast there and Hodo. But just going to show you the damage difference here. So at level 41, it's 2,200 damage. I go to dual Hodos, it's 2,600 damage. So I feel like it makes sense to use Beast, sacrifice like 500 damage to give my Mercenary Fanaticism. So I'm going to do the same run, Chaos Sanctuary, but a max damage variant on Players 1. And then you guys can kind of tell me what you think of the clear speed. So pretty much perfect gear. And then supporting the Mercenary. And on Players 1. This is why I think it's just such a confused skill. Is because if you want to turn it into a damage dealing skill, you gotta do some serious buffs. If you want to turn it into more of a crowd support control, I would like to see maybe at level 10 or level 20, we could maybe double the current radius. So it wouldn't be quite as clunky of a skill to use when you're whirlwinding. I'm going to quickly do the seal bosses just because... And I could use Reaper's Toll. I know someone's going to say that in the comments, but I'd rather not deal with constantly potting. I guess I'm a lazy person, I don't like potting. But on Players 1 and level 40 plus skill, I don't think the damage output is quite there yet. I guess it's a safe build, excuse me, with the stun, but now we'll do a Diablo, Players 1 Diablo, and we'll see. We're probably relying mostly on the Mercenary here, but
Not even death can save you from me.
So a little bit slow here. And that's, like, Mercenary's Fortitude, Crushing Blow and Deadly Strike from G-Face, solid Jewel in it. This is a 6 crit Insight with Fanaticism buff. So he was almost 9k damage with his Might and Fanaticism aura, supporting him with Warcry Stun. And that's kind of what you're going to expect on a Players 1 Chaos Sanctuary run. So I do think that the buffed scaling will help a little bit on playthroughs, because a lot of people have used Warcry as a kind of a transition skill as a playthrough from start to finish or to get into hell difficulty. The damage buff will help a bit in that scenario, but I just genuinely think in terms of like endgame content, Warcry is like an underwhelming skill. And the changes that they made haven't really made much of a difference from LOD. Doesn't change the Pit Circer or Pit Singer kind of playstyle at all, really, and then it's kind of still lackluster in areas like the Chaos Sanctuary. So suggestions that I have to improve it, I guess if you wanted to make more damage focused variants, I think it needs a bit of a damage buff. But if people want to use it as a utility skill, I think a small scaling radius per point invested could be a way to make it more of a useful skill. But the problem with that is by the time you put 20 hard points into battle orders, and let's say 20 hard points into sword mastery, your 1-point wonders, and then you pump a bunch of points into frenzy, double swing, and taunt to try and synergize the damage, you don't have a ton of extra points to shove into Warcry to get a bigger radius. So I just think it's a confused skill. It's a bit better than what it was, but overall I don't think it's that crazy. Again, let me know in the comment section below if you guys agree or completely disagree. The purpose of this was to just try and demonstrate that in terms of magic finding, I don't think it's changed too much from LOD. And then for kind of a maximum damage variant, it's not really better or worthwhile speccing into either. So, but again, let me know in the comment section below if you guys agree or disagree. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you could throw a like on it, that'd be awesome. And I'll catch you on the next video or live stream. Peace out.